You're listening to Retail Disrupted, a podcast that explores the latest industry developments and the trends that will shape how we shop in the future. I'm your host, Natalie Berg. This episode is brought to you by Manhattan Associates, the global leader in supply chain and unified commerce. From warehouses, transportation, inventory and order management, to store fulfillment and point of sale, Manhattan helps brands like Arc'teryx, Lacoste, and L'Oreal to unify their supply chains and turn stores into customer-first assets with real-time insights and tools that empower associates to deliver outstanding service. Hello and welcome back to Retail Disrupted. We're coming to you from Antwerp, where Manhattan Exchange has just wrapped up. Over the past couple of days, we've heard from Manhattan's senior leadership team and a whole host of UK and European retailers. The theme of the show was New Horizons, and there was a clear sense that we are entering a new era, an era defined by speed, simplicity, and intelligence. There was, as you can imagine, a lot of talk about AI. I definitely learned some new things here in Belgium. So today we are going to be unpacking those learnings for you on this episode. To help me with this, Ben Silito is back on the podcast. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hello, Natalie. Thank you for having me.
When I was prepping for this episode, I realized this is actually the third time you have been on the podcast, which I think practically makes you a co-host, Ben. I don't think anyone's been on 3 times before.
I don't think you can elevate me to that role just yet. Let's hope we're still talking some sense. Three episodes in.
I'm sure we will be. So Ben, you're very much a friend of the pod, but for those listeners who are maybe tuning in for the first time, can you give us a little bit of an intro?
Absolutely. Yes, retail journalist of 15 plus years, longer than I care to remember. Currently editor of Green Retail World, a sustainability in business trade title. Also freelance for lots of the popular UK trade titles that you may have heard of: Retail Week, Retail Gazette, Drapers, Computer Weekly.
Okay, so Ben, before we dive in, let's just do a little bit of scene setting. One of the first things I noticed is that the word disruption came up a lot, which I suppose is validating for this podcast. We heard from Manhattan's new CEO, Eric Clark, who said there's never been a time in business where disruption has been more consistent. And I like that because I talk about this idea of perpetual disruption a lot. So it's really nice to hear that being addressed sort of right off the bat. He said that every day there seems to be a new bombshell. And I think that's actually quite a fair assessment, especially when you consider everything that retailers are contending with geopolitical instability, the usual economic pressures, technology disruption, changing customer demands. Eric made the point that while some level of chaos is inevitable, it doesn't have to dictate our outcomes. So again, really reinforcing that message of agility, making sure that retailers can adapt quickly, and also at the same time reinforcing the message of continuing to evolve and accelerate innovation, because we know that the pace of change in this industry is relentless. So I just wanted to start with that, just to kind of remind everyone of the climate that we're operating in. So Ben, over to you now. What are your thoughts? What stood out for you?
That feeling of change and disruption is, funnily enough, actually quite consistent. It's kind of ironic that is consistent, and
it's the new normal, isn't it? I mean, I hate that phrase, but it's true.
Yeah, well, I think actually it was ever thus. As I say, I've been writing about retail for 15, 16 years now, and the aftermath of some of the really big high street names going bust, and ever since then, retail hasn't seemed to have had a stable period. So constant change, but yeah, that New Horizons theme popped up time and time again at Exchange this year. A good time in Antwerp. Lots of AI stuff that, as you say, we've learnt a lot.
Yeah, so let's talk about AI, because there was a lot of talk about unleashing the agents. So agentic AI was really top of the agenda. Eric Clark said that AI is probably the most transformative tech of our lifetime, and that Manhattan sees a future where hundreds of AI agents are involved across every process that a retailer runs. So that is pretty powerful stuff. What was also interesting for me was, this whole misconception that AI is coming for our jobs. And there was a slide showing that actually employment in the warehousing sector has increased by 50% over the past decade or so. So I thought that was interesting. It's not one or the other. It's kind of both, right? Like that's the way things are moving.
Absolutely. And in fact, those retailer case studies that I sat in and watched and engaged with, that everyone was talking about the requirement for more people to oversee the change. Obviously AI is going to replace several functions and jobs that can be quite easily replaced, but the fact that we're talking about constant change all the time in retail does require people to enact that change and deploy certain technology and have the brains and the wherewithal to actually make things happen. So that was very clear in the Asda session that I sat in on the main day. They usually have around 8 warehouse tech people in their team, sort of on a normally. But over the last few years, they've been moving away from the Walmart technology, following Walmart's sale of the business back in 2020, 2021. And those 8 people have risen to maybe 60 at times to help bring in the new technology, get rid of the old technology, and that's just the people within the Asda team. There's also so many different partners involved as well. So, and that's a big theme from the co-op session as well. John Freelander said the same. It's in times of transformation, you need people to come in and make things happen. So I think you're right with that kind of conclusion.
That's interesting. I mean, the Asda session I thought was really interesting because they've obviously been through so much change, as you say, since they are no longer part of the Walmart group. They've had, the past few years have been hugely transformative for them. And I thought it was interesting. I think the analogy was like, imagine you have a huge mansion with 50 bedrooms, and you've got to remodel this whole humongous house, but it has to be done kind of is part of it. There's a lot of things going on at the same time. You can't just focus on one room, and because it has a knock-on effect on the next room. And I just thought that was a really nice kind of visual because I think the stat was that every single till in the stores had to be changed. Like everything changed at Asda. So
there was a real honesty, a real truth in the Asda session about how difficult digital transformation is and the challenges that you stumble across along the way. It was Richard Peck, Senior Director for Asda Tech, and Rob Wilkes, who looks after logistics systems development. They were very clear that there were potentially a few sleepless nights, and now that the migration is done, they're ready to. They kind of see that as now day one, and they're ready to live. What was the phrase? I think I noted it down, but yeah, get on with our lives. Now they spent 3 or 4 years of major transformation. It's now we can get on with our lives and start building the new tech into the great foundations that they've built using technology such as that from Manhattan.
Retail transformation has obviously been a huge theme, and it always is at this event. And the same sort of message was echoed by Hugo Boss, who said that, look, transformation can be really messy, but in the end, it's absolutely worth it. And you're going to come out a stronger, leaner, more agile business, which is, that's how retailers need to be operating these days. So just to go back to AI, Ben, I sat in on a really interesting session with Mark Steele from Google. He said that AI is the third big shift for consumer industries, with, of course, e-commerce and then mobile commerce being the first two. What I thought was really interesting about the session is that he said what's different with this shift, this AI shift, is that it's being driven by consumers. So with e-commerce and mobile commerce, that was a case of brands creating new digital experiences and then communicating those benefits to consumers, which then drove adoption. The brand was in control. But with AI, the consumer is behind the driving wheel. They're using ChatGPT, they're using Gemini, they're ahead of most of the brands. And he also talked about the huge disparity that currently exists. What are our expectations? When we go onto a retailer's website and we're like, actually, we can't get an answer, or we can't get a very tailored meal plan in like 4 seconds from my online supermarket, but I can get that from these AI tools. So it does feel like there is this growing disparity, and it on the flip side, it feels like there's a huge opportunity for retailers to really embrace AI and make those experiences better and more personalized for consumers. So I thought that was really, really interesting.
Ken Hughes, the keynote speaker, AI is not. We're talking about the technological advancements over the last few decades and how it's been quite incremental change. But he said, and sort of a step jump. But he described AI as a spring jump. It is taking things into a new era that perhaps we certainly don't know exactly what that looks like yet. I mean, yeah, it hasn't come up at the conference actually. It may have done in some of the external, off-stage sessions. But ChatGPT moving into actual commerce is real. This is something that's emerging over the last couple of months. You're going to be able to buy things in ChatGPT. You search things, ask things, and then buy. This is something that brands need to get their heads around. I have no advice on how to get your heads around it, but there's a danger that they can potentially lose that connection with their customers because it's all going to happen via Gen AI.
And that goes back to Eric's opening line about every day there being a new bombshell. And I think it's fair, especially when it comes to tech, things are moving so quickly.
It's hard to keep up when you're trying to, pretend to be an expert on these kind of things.
and not that we're doing that, Ben. So I think, while we're on the topic of kind of how search and discovery and customer service, all of these things are being disrupted and AI is playing a huge role. And I do want to stick with AI I've got a couple of other points that I wanted to highlight, also from the Google session. So there were a couple of examples, one from Best Buy in the US, where the example of how a Gen AI chatbot can help to improve the experience. And of course, we've heard from Manhattan on their Maven update, which I think you have some thoughts on in a sec. But with Best Buy, if you order a product and it becomes ready to ship sooner than expected, the Gen AI chatbot will notify the customer and ask if they want to receive it earlier. And you can imagine, that the huge knock-on effect that has on, customer satisfaction, on efficiencies, and it frees up staff time. So I thought that was really interesting. And then just quickly, one other example from Puma. So again, this goes back to the whole, how AI is enabling hyper-personalized experiences for customers. So if you want to buy a pair of Puma shoes, if you are, Ben, you're a runner. You're about to do the Amsterdam Marathon, so this is more your world than mine. Anyway, imagine you are a trail runner. They'll show a pair of shoes on a gravel path, so it feels more like, okay, I can see myself wearing those. I can see myself using those. Again, it's just little tweaks, but I think these are all ways that our e-commerce experiences are going to become, richer, more personalized, and more immersive.
Absolutely. Some really good examples there, and there were lots shared throughout the course of the conference. The thing that I wanted to say was related to the big announcement that Manhattan made 1 year ago at this event in Barcelona, and that was the launch of Maven, which it describes as its Gen AI assistant, customer assistant. And I was interested this year because there weren't so many of those big new release announcements that we had in Barcelona, but it was more a kind of an update on some of those new launches from last year. And Maven has been updated, showing the kind of speed of change. They has been used in chatbot technology, sort of helping with customer service queries via chatbots, and it's clearly been working for Manhattan's customers because they've now deployed that technology into responding to emails from customers as well. So much potential with this technology, and I'm really impressed with the Maven tech, actually.
Yeah, and a quick win for retailers as well, just to be able to more efficiently handle those inbound queries. On that topic, I thought it was interesting to hear how AI is being used by store staff. This is a increasingly hot topic. For frontline workers, they said it's less about typing queries into a box and asking for help, but instead it's more about giving a prescriptive set of recommendations, kind of newsfeed style. And so, for example, if shoppers in your area are searching for certain products, being able to understand that, to recognize that, so that when they come into the store, here's how to engage with those shoppers. I thought that was interesting and kind of closing that loop of, that the holy grail of connecting sort of online behavior and in-store behavior, I guess, as well. Related to this was gamification. So there was a lot of talk about giving store staff feedback and goal setting throughout the day, and just how empowering that is. A lot of talk around employee enablement and how tech can really help with that. So yeah, some really interesting things that I think came out of yesterday's discussions.
Absolutely. The in-store stuff is interesting. The more conversations I have with retailers, the more it seems like that is a real area of focus, that frontline staff, giving them the tools they need to do their jobs better. The fact that there are, we didn't hear of it. I don't think we've heard of any examples of actual retailers using that tech. I'm sure there are some perhaps in test mode at the moment, but yeah, that's going to be revolutionary, isn't it? If you've got frontline staff who can somehow tune into what local nuances and local interests are popular, and then kind of convert that at the point of sale when customers come in, then that's huge intelligence that can fast forward retailers' fortunes for sure.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you consider how it touches on a lot of things, but empowering staff, reinventing the store, understanding that the role of the store isn't just about shopper coming in and buying stuff, but and also just how difficult it is to attract and retain talent in this industry. I mean, there's a lot of churn, and if you can do anything you can do to increased job satisfaction, has a knock-on effect on customer satisfaction. And I think more and more retailers are recognizing the power of technology here.
Yeah, but just broadening that topic a little away from frontline staff as well. The topic of gamification popped up from time and time again during the course of the conference. Actually, I think probably Brian Kinsella was the main culprit for bringing this up. But he mentioned, as you say, motivating frontline staff, and with giving them feedback and giving them new targets, and how that really kind of improves performance. But yeah, a new, I don't know how you'd describe it, but it's perhaps a new section of some of the Manhattan Technology fulfillment insights he described as post games, offering a post game spotlight on how the business is performing and how things are going. So that kind of idea of a sports match, and the analysis afterwards, and getting deep into the data and describing what happened, like in a TV sports show. It seems like Manhattan are trying to bring that to the back end of retail, so that it gives a new way for staff operating in warehouses and in the supply chain, a way of thinking about how they're managing their workload, and framing it in that sporting context is another sort of way of gamifying.
Yeah, Brian also talked about customer-controlled fulfillment, this idea of being able to modify an order after you place a purchase. Now, this is something that Manhattan talked about a lot last year as well. Why would you want to modify your order after you placed a purchase? Well, maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you want to change the fulfillment method. Maybe you chose home delivery, and actually it's more convenient to have it to do in-store pickup. Or maybe you even want to add to the order. There's a lot of different reasons why shoppers might want to change their mind. But what currently happens is the shopper submits the order, and the next time they have an opportunity to interact with that order is when it turns up on their door. So as Brian said, when you hand over control, you get a happier customer. You're eliminating the need for your contact center to get involved. There are fewer returns, which of course has an environmental benefit as well. And he also pointed out that, a lot of younger shoppers, Gen Z shoppers, they want that kind of self-service. They don't want the hassle of, getting in touch with someone to resolve something an app can sort out. So I think we're going to see more of this. It's definitely something I'm going to be watching.
The post-purchase thing is really interesting. As you say, it plays into some of my sensibilities around sustainability. Being able to redirect something so that it doesn't become a wasted order. Cancelling something that if you've got buyer's regret, it avoids having to make that return. It lengthens that time that consumers have to make that purchase decision. So a more considered decision is usually a successful sale that customers happy with, and isn't returned.
I think especially as we're heading into peak season, you can imagine, as you say, buyer's remorse. You might go a little crazy with the Black Friday deals and then think, oh, did I really need that? But ultimately, if the product is going to be returned anyway, you might as well make it easier all around, right? So I think that's a win-win. Ben, I just wanted to talk about, I kind of mentioned it earlier around search and discovery and how that's being disrupted by AI. We talked a lot about AI earlier. Now, this wasn't a primary theme of the conference, but I think it came up, naturally came up in the Google session. And I think it's something that we can't ignore. And I know we talked a lot about ChatGPT earlier as well. But in Eric's opening remarks, he called out how 70% of Gen Z and 35% of millennials start with TikTok when searching for new products. Now, funnily enough, I'm about to speak to the head of retail for TikTok UK on the podcast. So we'll get more insights on that soon. But I think, it's clear that the way we are not only discovering products, but actually searching for products, that's evolving. Another thing from the Google session that I thought was really interesting is that the way that we ask questions is changing. So it's not about short queries anymore, but actually because we're using things like, ChatGPT and Gemini, we're getting used to asking very long questions, very detailed prompts, because we know we'll get that personalized response. In fact, Google said that if you look specifically at Europe just over the past few months, queries that contained 5 words or more grew 8 times faster than short queries. So this is the way that search is evolving, and also around visual search. We heard that 1 in 4 visual search queries today have commercial intent. So it used to just be for fun, like I'm thinking of my gardening apps and uploading photos and asking, what plant this is, which I'm very guilty of. But what's happening now is that we want to buy a specific product or service without needing to use words. So, upload a video and ask, why is my microwave not working? And that's the way we're interacting and searching for products. So lots of interesting stuff there. I just wanted to call that out. And not a key theme of the conference, but definitely a change in customer behavior.
The 5 words or more search term, I think that's quite light, actually, 5 words. I was at another conference not that long ago, and this same subject came up, and it isn't abnormal for people to be searching, well, because of ChatGPT and other AI platforms. It's not unusual for someone to be searching for something like, for example, I would like to buy some blue shorts that would work very well on a camping holiday, but there's with some reference to nature, just like absolutely long tail search terms.
You can get really specific, right?
Yeah, and absolute massive. Oh, that was a really bad example, but
I knew where you were going.
But you know what I mean. There's convoluted search, as you say, quite convoluted search terms are becoming more and more popular because of the different ways people are seeking information online, and this has massive implications for search. And I mean, I'm sure the brains at Google and the like are on top of this and monitoring it. And they obviously are, because they're talking about it in their sessions. But yeah, really something to watch. I don't claim to be a huge SEO expert, but there's surely massive implications for that as well. And yet another bombshell that retailers need to be considering and working out. They've probably only just got their heads around how to do that over the last 20 years of digital evolution, and now it's all going to change again.
Well, the other thing that came up in the Google session was, and it was so interesting, but I had never thought about this before, but if you think about how we shop online and how that we know that if we want to look for a product, we go to the top part of the website and there'll be a little navigation bar. If we want information on how to return a product or delivery, we know to scroll to the bottom. So we're kind of trained that that's the way online shopping works. But in the Google session, there was, it was just making us think, actually, especially with the rise of agentic AI, it doesn't need to be like that. It can be so much better. And the next iteration of online shopping is coming thick and fast. So I just thought that was interesting and, potentially very exciting for the future and the way that we shop.
Absolutely. I'll be interested to hear your podcast with the representative from TikTok, because that's an area I need some significant learning in.
Me too. I'm sort of on TikTok now. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm there.
Tens of thousands of views, I heard, with one of your latest efforts. So
yeah, one went viral, but I have no idea why. So I mean, I need to work it out, Ben. Maybe I should ask ChatGPT. So Ben, before we wrap up, I want to briefly touch on point of sale. This is, of course, a growth area for Manhattan. Now, a couple of interesting things they talked about. They mentioned how they've released a new feature called Tap to Pay. And I thought it was interesting because they said that when retailers are rolling out mobile POS or POS, there has to be a payment terminal on the back of those devices. That is very clunky, and it has to be charged every few hours. With Tap to Pay, store associates can use their iPhones. So that becomes the payment terminal. So I thought that was interesting. And the second thing here was around the customer facing display that they talked about. So as you're checking out as a shopper, you have this kind of forward facing screen, which will display all the usual information, pricing, tax. You can enter your phone number, or if you're a loyalty member. That allows for much greater personalization, product recommendations, personalized offers, the opportunity for retailers to cross-sell and upsell. I thought that was really interesting, especially because we often hear about personalization happening throughout the store journey. So, associates being equipped with their devices and helping shoppers, if they're consenting to give that data away. But this is happening at the point of sale. So slightly different dynamic, and maybe an opportunity to get shoppers to do more of an impulse purchase.
They give an example of a retailer that's actually deployed it in the US, Harbor Freight. Not a retailer I'm hugely familiar with, but 1,800 stores, I assume across North America. And yeah, they have done that, and it will be interesting to map whether they see that incremental gain, that upsell from deploying that technology at the point of sale. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and yeah, all sorts of things you could communicate with the customer. I don't know, I don't know if Harbor Freight have a loyalty scheme, but a swipe of the loyalty scheme that may trigger a different communication on that customer facing POS. All sorts of ways that they can try and get more money out of customers, I guess.
Or improve the service.
Sorry, and strengthen loyalty. Strengthen loyalty is perhaps the better way of phrasing it. Yeah.
Awesome, Ben. We've covered so much ground. I think that's probably it for me, unless you had anything else to add.
I mean, just a really interesting session. I think, Ken Hughes, the keynote speaker.
He was great.
Yeah, absolutely, and I've seen him a few times, and always brings something new to the table. But yeah, just his description of the different generations that now retailers are having to shape their proposition to. I think about 7 distinct generations of shopper that all want slightly different things and have grown up in different eras with different experiences and different influences. And it's not easy being a retailer, is it? Having to shape your proposition to so many different people.
That's it. So many different people, so many different ways of shopping. It's a complex web of retail. Great. Well, Ben, it's always great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Retail Disrupted. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the podcast, please leave a rating or review or share it with others. It really makes a difference.